Queensland's flood victims have finally received some of the answers they were looking for. The Floods Commission has handed down its interim report into the state's flood disaster and made 175 recommendations for improvement before the next wet season. It's urged sweeping changes to the operation of Wivenhoe Dam, better training for emergency services and improving alert systems for residents. The Premier has vowed to implement the changes to honour the people who lost their lives. Francine Norton reports.
The time for answers had arrived, and with a quick handshake,
can I thank you, Judge Holmes? Can I thank you?
6 months of investigative work was handed over to the state government.
This is a blueprint for us to manage future disasters better. We owe it to those people who suffered in this disaster to learn the lessons and to act on them, and that's what we'll do.
While the commissioners remained silent, their 250-page report spoke volumes, and Wivenhoe Dam was singled out for attention. It's recommended the dam be lowered to 75% if an extreme wet season is forecast, wet season arrangements be reviewed annually, that the entire dam manual be reviewed, and that more dam engineers are recruited and trained.
I don't want something sugar-coated. I want a report that will actually make us safer.
The report found communications on the dam were plagued by confusion and lack of clarity, and it was the former Natural Resources Minister Stephen Robertson who abdicated his responsibility on reducing supply levels to the water authorities.
There's no doubt that if you had your time again, you would react differently, and I'm sure the Minister feels that as well.
The opposition says the report highlighted the government's lack of leadership.
Had I been the Premier at the time, we would have acted, we would have drawn the dam down.
The Commission also urged measures be put in place to better prepare for and manage disasters, including increasing the number of swiftwater rescuers and SES, bring the emergency helicopter network under a single command, improve training for 000 operators, councils should prepare SMS warnings for residents and consider sirens in small towns. But it was the handling of emergency calls made by Toowoomba flood victims Donna and Jordan Rice that came in for some of the heaviest criticism.
The very vast majority of our officers go to work every day simply to do their very, very best for the community of Queensland. Sometimes we don't get it quite right. And yes, a single incident can impact on the reputation of our organisation.
The waters have long subsided, but the race to prepare for the next wet season is gathering pace. The Premier will table a full response and costings to Parliament later this month, but she's warned some of the recommendations may take years to implement. Answers for the meantime, but still many more questions remain.
And Francine Norton joins us now. Francine, the Premier flagged that the state government could be involved in legal action. How does that come about?
Well, David, the Commission found that there was a failure to comply with the Dam Operations Manual because the engineers didn't take into account forecast rainfall information for the level of the lake when they were deciding on how much water to release from Wivenhoe Dam and when to release it. Now, the Commissioners couldn't find that there were any consequences because of this breach, but it could potentially pave the way for legal action by flood victims. Now, today the Premier described it as just a technical breach, and at the end of the day, it'll be up to lawyers to decide if there's any case to answer.
Now, the inquiry's only at the halfway mark. What's next for the Commission?
Well, David, it's back to work for the Commission. It will begin its second round of public hearings here in Brisbane on the 19th of September for another couple of months. This time it'll travel to places like Bundaberg and Maryborough and Gympie, and it'll focus on more longer-term issues like insurance and land use and housing development. David?
Thank you. Francine Norton there reporting in Brisbane. In Grantham, where so many lives were lost during the so-called inland tsunami, residents have reacted with anger to today's findings. They say nothing in the Commission's recommendations can bring back their loved ones, yet the interim report has reopened old wounds. From Grantham, Kieran McKechnie reports.
In this tiny demountable building turned makeshift home, the interim report was met with tears and anger.
In Queensland is a sound one.
Oh, God.
These survivors wanted answers. They say they got excuses.
She thinks she's won the election because of our bad luck.
When the wall of water tore through Grantham on January 10, it took everything in its path. Cars, houses, and most tragically, so many lives.
There's people here, including myself, that will never, ever recover from this. You're scarred for life. And today it has brought it back a bit, you know, thinking about the people that you lost in your community.
It's all been taken out from under us. And at our age, we just can't start again.
The Commission recommended better warning systems for the Lockyer Valley, including alarm-activating gauges in creeks and the use of sirens in town centres. An earlier warning, survivors say, could have changed everything.
I don't think a lot of people would have lost their lives if we had had time
They wouldn't have.
to get out.
While this community is still so damaged, both physically and emotionally, it's hoped the Commission recommendations can at least bring some peace of mind to Grantham residents ahead of the next storm season. But for many, that's a tall order.
When it rains in town here, I'm a mess.
For now, on higher ground, work begins on a new Grantham. But the fresh start can't erase the scars from the horrors of last summer.
And Kieran McKechnie joins us now from Grantham. Kieran, we've seen a lot of anger in the town today. What were residents expecting from the report?
Well, David, people really wanted answers about why the disaster happened here in January, and for them that was what was missing in today's report. People here are still so fragile, they're grieving so much, and they just wanted some sort of explanation as to how they could have lost their loved ones and their homes and livelihoods. I think there was also a reassurance issue here. To put it simply, people are worried when it rains. They're frightened. They see dark clouds coming and they lock up their homes and their businesses and they head for the hills. Of course, the report recommended a number of things to ensure flood mitigation in the Lockyer Valley, but for so many survivors, that's simply not enough to ensure that they rest easy this summer.
So where to now for Grantham?
Well, David, as we saw in my report, there is work, construction work underway to move homes to higher ground, but that too is causing a bit of concern for people here. They're yet to conduct the ballots to allocate blocks. That's going to happen in a few days' time, but people still don't know exactly where their homes are going to be. So for the people of Grantham, there's still a great deal of uncertainty and upheaval yet to come.
Okay, thanks, Kieran. Kieran McKechnie there in Grantham. Flood-affected homeowners and businesses in Brisbane have welcomed the inquiry's recommendation to reduce the level of Wivenhoe Dam when more floods are predicted. Some still blame the dam operators for the extent of the devastation, while others believe all that could have been done was done. James Kelly has more.
It was Brisbane's worst flood since 1974. Some of the city's best-known landmarks went under. Part of the CBD became a ghost town after the authorities turned off the power as a precaution. Flood victim Bulent Kosak operates a kebab and pizza shop. He's welcomed the inquiry's recommendation to review the Wivenhoe Dam manual, saying there would have been less flooding if SEQ Water released more water earlier.
Should have come maybe slowly before the couple of days. That's happened.
He's also backed the recommendation to cut the full storage level to 75% when extreme wet seasons are predicted.
Maybe next time not much full should be, you know what I mean? Maybe 72, wouldn't they?
Almost 5,000 businesses, including the Brisbane markets, flooded. So back in. They're convinced the management of Wivenhoe played a part and want dam levels reviewed.
In hindsight, that would have been really wise when all the predictions were we were going to have a very wet summer.
Given what we've been through now, 75% is a much better target than 100% water supply.
The Gobius family think the report recommendations will go some way to prevent another disaster. Some say whether the inquiry's recommendations are adopted or not, the only way to flood-proof a home is to go up. This home has been raised twice after the council increased the maximum building height.
Very difficult to say, but I wouldn't blame anybody, you know.
But this is the answer, go up.
That's right, yeah.
Architect and flood victim Michael Rayner agrees.
I think having an extra floor makes all the difference to where you can take your belongings and at least solve that part of the problem.
But he says while ever people live on the floodplain, some inundation is inevitable.
And reporter James Kelly joins us now. James, the people of Brisbane don't seem to be as angry as those in Grantham over the report.
Well, no, David. Most people I spoke to today, while they thought the authorities could have done more earlier, many were really accepting that this was just simply a natural disaster. At least that's how Christine and Kari Gobius see it, and they join me now. Kari, do you blame the authorities at all for what happened?
We don't have a lot of blame for what's happened. A natural disaster's occurred. It's affected lots of us. Many people have pulled together to help people like us come out of it. And it's good that we can learn a few things from the inquiry that's come down and made recommendations together.
And Christine, do you think the recommendations, if implemented, will help next time round?
I think they will, particularly if the annual review that they're proposing takes place, and if a wet season's predicted, well, at least the dam can be managed and we can be given information and can prepare to deal with it better. I mean, a flood of this magnitude is still going to have an impact, but at least the damage can be minimised.
All right, thanks, folks. Well, David, like this couple here, many seem to be just happy to get on with the job of rebuilding.
Thanks, James. James Kelly there in the Brisbane suburb of Sherwood. In central Queensland, residents have mostly praised the efforts of emergency workers and support the flood report recommendations. The Rockhampton Mayor says old-fashioned speaker systems could be the way to warn residents during disasters. Marlena Wapp reports.
Central Queenslanders have been moving on with life.
You enjoying this?
Rockhampton mother Kim Peacock and her daughter Talia have been enjoying the backyard again.
Okay, and this is where the water level come up to our house here.
Their home on the city's south side was in the worst affected area of Depot Hill. The Fitzroy River's peak of 9.2 metres forced about 500 residents to leave. The Mayor says the council will take on board recommendations to use SMS alerts, but with caution.
Certainly we'll look at adopting SMS alerts, but I would certainly be urging some caution that we don't place too much emphasis on those. We didn't use them in the Rockhampton flood here. We used a number of medium to get messages out to people.
Further southwest in Theodore, residents say local knowledge proved valuable in helping the town initiate Queensland's first full evacuation of a community.
Yeah, Theodore's coming back. I think that's what it boils down to. The people of Theodore have really rallied around pretty well.
Tradesmen are busy rebuilding what's left of Dr Bruce Chater's old surgery.
It's a bit sad to see what we've lost, and it kind of reminds you of that. But it is lovely to see things coming back.
The recovery work extends inland to Emerald in the Central Highlands.
All of us are looking at trying to, work on the resilience of our communities, trying to work with them to be better prepared.
Since the floods, many residents in central Queensland have been calling for more weather gauges in river systems. The interim report recommends that councils look at the feasibility of such equipment.
Kim Peacock says she plans to be more prepared for the next wet season.
All I'm hoping is it's not going to be like last season. That's all I'm hoping for. But if it is, I just won't be complacent. I'll just start picking things up if it looks like it's going to flood.
More public awareness is what councils will be aiming for. Marlena Wapp, ABC News, Central Queensland.